Lady Macbeth is a complex and powerful character, and given that she is one of the play's main characters, you can certainly bank on her character coming up as your set question, either for your mock exams for Macbeth GCSEs, or of course in your final GCSE Macbeth exams. So when it comes to Lady Macbeth, one of the things that you need to make sure you move away from, which is what most GCSE students get stuck in when they're writing about Lady Macbeth, is you need to move from saying things like, Lady Macbeth is bad, Lady Macbeth is evil, she tells Macbeth that he's not man enough. Lots of students, when they're writing about Lady Macbeth, make some really simple, basic points, and they state the obvious. You need to move beyond just saying, Lady Macbeth is a bad woman. Lady Macbeth tells Macbeth that he is not man enough. You need to go beyond that and really start using really powerful analysis and powerful complex points that not only shows that you understand how Lady Macbeth impacted the audience that was watching her during Shakespeare's time. So this is a Jacobean audience, but of course you also need to mention what she was used by Shakespeare to demonstrate when it came to the play and its central message against ambition. Okay, so let's say if you get Lady Macbeth as your set question for Macbeth, what are the 3 winning points you should talk about in any Lady Macbeth essay? You should always begin any Lady Macbeth essay by writing the following. Always begin by talking about how she is portrayed from the beginning as being ruthlessly ambitious. Remember that when you think about the theme of ambition, which is obviously the central theme that drives the tragedy of Macbeth forward, lots of people can clearly see how Macbeth is ambitious. And maybe they can see, okay, Lady Macbeth wants a little bit of power, she's ambitious, but they are not able to express that and talk about how this has corrupted her character. When you're talking about Lady Macbeth, remember, in terms of how she demonstrates this theme, and of course how destructive this theme is as it's manifest in her from the beginning, she is shown as the driving force behind King Duncan's murder. In fact, she was called the 4th witch for a reason. Whilst the 3 witches planted the seeds of ambition in Macbeth's mind, remember they're the ones who told him, "Hail Macbeth, thou shalt be king hereafter," Lady Macbeth literally pushed Macbeth over the edge because of also her ambition to be powerful and to gain the royal title in Scotland as well. So she really schemes, she plots and considers how she can corrupt Macbeth's nature in order to ensure that he kills King Duncan and the witches' prophecies become fulfilled, and thus she also becomes powerful alongside her husband. And of course, a really powerful quote that demonstrates this, and all of these points, by the way, guys, I'm making, these are the points you need to be talking about in Lady Macbeth essay. The moment you talk about these points, the moment you mention how she schemes to corrupt Macbeth, and of course how we can see she is ambitious, you are talking not only about her character, but you're tying her into a theme of ambition. And of course, the quotation that demonstrates how she's scheming, how can I corrupt my husband? And of course, this is what led a lot of Jacobeans who were watching this play at the time to call her the 4th witch, is when she says, "I fear that nature is too full of the milk of human kindness." This is when she is plotting on how to corrupt Macbeth with the very same ambition that she has in order to kill the king. She is actually the person that masterminds this plot to kill King Duncan, and she's ultimately successful in convincing Macbeth. You absolutely have to do that. And the moment you move away from saying stuff like, oh, Macbeth is really bad, she's really evil, she tells Macbeth he's not man enough, and then you start talking about points like this, now this is where you find that your essay becomes a cut above the rest. You are going from literally getting really, really basic marks, or even failing and getting 1, 2, and 3, to actually doing super well and getting those 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s. This is what goes into a really powerful winning Lady Macbeth essay. Now, the second point you want to talk about in any powerful Lady Macbeth essay is how she reverses gender roles. Once more, some students show a dim awareness of this. They say, oh, Lady Macbeth acts like the man, and Macbeth doesn't act like the man. And then they stop there. Or they say, Lady Macbeth tells Macbeth what to do, and they stop there. But they don't expand on that. They don't talk about why is this significant and why is she shown as reversing these gender roles. Now remember, in terms of the play, you always want to talk about how Lady Macbeth dominates her marriage and she questions Macbeth's masculinity. What's really interesting, obviously, when you're thinking about this contextually, is, of course, there were very defined gender roles within a marriage. A woman was supposed to be really passive, very obedient to her husband, and also her highest aspiration during the Jacobean era was just to have children. And of course, it's the man who was really ambitious, went out to war, didn't care about blood. And of course, Macbeth more so typifies and seems to illustrate the more feminine function when he listens to Lady Macbeth. She questions his masculinity. She tells him what to do, right? So he more seems to play the role of the woman in their relationship and in their marriage, whilst it's Lady Macbeth that is super ambitious, really driven, very bloodthirsty. And when she can see that Macbeth wants to back out of the deal to plot and kill King Duncan, she questions his masculinity. So she's also extremely cunning and manipulative, and she says, when you durst do it, then you were a man. So remember that. What does this illustrate? This illustrates that Lady Macbeth is a really unconventional woman who also reversed gender roles. Once more, you need to talk about her in that way, and you need to talk about how the relationship is presented in this way. And of course, if you struggle with Macbeth, don't forget that I'm going to be running a one-off Macbeth GCSE masterclass during October half term. This is going to be on the 27th of October at 5 p.m. And during this 1 hour class, not only am I going to be writing a GCSE grade 9 model answer on Macbeth, but also I'll be sharing a 3-page cheat sheet that you can use not only for these mocks, but in your final GCSE exams, and during that live lesson, you can ask me as many questions as you want. So make sure you join in. It's just 1 hour. It's always a vibe, and we get straight into it with the heavy hitters and what you should be writing about, not only for your mocks, but ultimately you can still use the same material from that hour as part of your revision for your final Macbeth GCSE exams. Now, the final point with Lady Macbeth is how she experiences the most dramatic change. You absolutely need to talk about how she literally experiences like a 180 turn, okay? In other words, she goes from being this ruthlessly ambitious woman to becoming remorseful, to becoming almost quite frightened, a shell of her former self. And this is because she somehow reflects on all her actions, her guilt catches up with her, and she cannot bear to think of how she influenced Macbeth to kill King Duncan, to reverse the natural order, and obviously to go against the divine order and divine right of kings, okay? So her dramatic change at the end is also significant, and that deserves a 3rd point on its own. In other words, you need to talk about how she shifts from being ruthless to being very remorseful. She wants obedience, but then she realizes actually because the sin that she really masterminded, which is killing King Duncan, this act of regicide was directly against God. She also realizes that she is beyond redemption because she helped Macbeth commit this sin directly against God. And of course, her supernatural hallucination in Act 5, Scene 1, where she sees spots of blood on her hands and she says, "Out damn spot." This obviously demonstrates her sense of remorse, her sense of guilt, her sense of anguish, which she can't live with, and ultimately commits suicide. So of course, you need to also talk about this very dramatic transformation in any Lady Macbeth essay. So that's really it when it comes to how to write the perfect response to Lady Macbeth. And of course, if you want to see how this looks like in an actual grade 9 GCSE essay, just join in my October 27th half-term class. It's going to be at 5 p.m. I hope to see you there, and thanks so much for watching.